Hello and welcome, and since this is a program about minimalism, I won't waste any more time. You're watching Roundtable with me, David Foster. Less is more, they say. Move the clutter aside and you can see what's important.
It started as an art movement in the 1960s, but minimalism has moved beyond those boundaries. It also describes a trendy new philosophy that promotes a simpler way of living. Social media bloggers show you how to have a capsule wardrobe, save money, and take aesthetic photos. Minimalism is defined as a tool to rid yourself of life's excess in favour of focusing on what's important, so you can find happiness, fulfilment, and freedom. It includes simplifying our busy lives and cutting down on consumer spending from fast fashion, furniture, and owning fewer possessions. According to Greenpeace, the average person buys 60% more items of clothing annually compared to 15 years ago. As its popularity grows, is minimalism the antidote to mindless materialism?
And I'm very pleased to say that joining us via Skype from New Jersey in the USA, Karen Liszewski, beginner minimalist and blogger. We move to Kirksville, Missouri in the United States. Jonathan Vieker, their writer and musician, and in the studio, Caroline Rogers, professional organiser at Room to Think and Dimitrios Tsivrikos, professor of business psychology, University College London. Hardly minimalist there in the introduction. Blimey, that seemed to take up half the programme, but thank you very much indeed for coming here. Jonathan, let me ask you, first of all, you tried it, it didn't work. Am I right?
Well, I became a minimalist about 3 years ago. Kind of dabbled with it a little bit and got really into it. Ended up kind of minimizing a lot more stuff than I intended to originally. I've since walked it back a little bit. I still very much consider myself a minimalist, but I'm much more of a moderate minimalist now. I think that has a lot of things to recommend it, but I think like any other movement or philosophy, it has trade-offs to be aware of, and it needs to be implemented correctly.
So what did you do?
In my view, moderate.
What did you do that you felt was over the top, too much?
Sure. Well, I ended up, I started with minimizing things I had never really used, and then I gave away some things I hadn't used in years, and I kind of got a little bit carried away, I would say. That feeling of getting rid of things it can be really, really addictive, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, but I ended up giving away some things that had some sentimental value. Gave away some things that I thought, well, surely I'll never use this again. And, of course, a year or two later, I had to go rebuy that thing. So I consider myself more of a moderate minimalist now.
So what is your advice?
My advice is to take minimalism slowly, to do something like give away one item a day for a month, institute something like a one in, one out policy in your life, where for every new thing you acquire, give away something that's similar. And to start with the easy wins, pick the low-hanging fruit first before kind of diving, both feet first into minimalism.
And quickly, what has it done to your life, for good or for bad?
For good, it's very much it's simplified my life. It's definitely kind of simplified my living space quite a bit, and I feel like it's helped me kind of clarify what's important to me, what my kind of ideals are, and where I need to be spending my time and attention and money.
Okay, let me talk to Karen here. You're a beginner minimalist. Where do you start?
I started with my home. I started getting rid of things that I haven't used in a long time. And I really started enjoying that open space in my home and less clutter.
And you say it helped with your anxiety.
It did. I found a calm and a peace that I haven't felt in a very long time.
And do you recognize what Jonathan is saying? Is you've got to be careful here that you don't become obsessive about it and throw everything away and then suddenly realize, oh crikey, that really mattered to me.
Absolutely. It can really be addicting. You can go from getting rid of a couple things to getting rid of everything because it does feel good.
Dimitrios, is it just a fad, or does it help, really?
It does. I think on a day-to-day basis, people are looking for change. People are looking to improve their lives. And I think your environment is the first thing that you can try to change. You know, less stuff, less clutter. You're trying to organize your space. And in reality, it's a symbolic act of clearing out your head. However, it's quite similar to quitting smoking. Withdrawal effects can actually appear, and I think what Jonathan said is actually quite right. At the very beginning, you're trying to reduce your anxiety, you're trying to improve your life, but if you do it very suddenly, without control, you're actually adding to your anxiety because you're already missing out stuff that meant something for you, stuff that actually fulfilled a particular symbolic contribution to who you are. A Christmas present, a toy from a loved one. So it is quite important to actually personalize it and interpret it in a way that suits your lifestyle.
Isn't it a symptom rather than the cause of your problems? I mean, surely people who have the desire to clear out have something bigger to deal with than simply what is around them physically.
Absolutely. I think it's the first sign to actually for people to see if you're looking for that level of change, you kind of have to think twice. Why am I doing this? What sort of causes that? So before you start giving away objects or clearing out your desk, actually trying to understand, is it anxiety? Is it you need to actually change something in your life? So it is great to declutter, but it's a lot more important to understand why we do so.
Caroline, I know you're dying to get in, and I'm going to ask you about how people do it and why they do it in just a moment, but I want to throw this one out for everybody first. New York Times says, this is an opinion piece, it has become an ostentatious ritual of consumerist self-sacrifice. It's almost virtue signaling. It has become a fad in some ways. Dimitrios first.
To a degree, yes, it has become, and it is something that people actually continue to sort of associate with other lifestyle fads, such as yoga or mindfulness. There are quite a few of these fluffy words that people actually say, I'm going to become more minimal. They don't actually understand what it is. They don't understand how it is, and actually when they do it too passionately, so to speak, they can actually have side effects in terms of missing out their belongings. So it has become a fact, but it is quite important to actually engage with it in a way that can be beneficial to people.
Okay, we will come to you two in America in just a moment, if I may, to ask you whether it is a form of emotional blackmail, if you like, virtue signaling. Think about that while I talk to Caroline here, and listen to Caroline too, because more and more people come to you and say this is what we need to do, professionally as well as personally.
Yeah.
So many different stories, I would think.
A gazillion, and mostly held in confidence.
Why has it caught on?
I think it's caught on for loads of reasons. One, I know it's caught on. I'm a member of a professional body of professional organisers, and that membership has increased exponentially. So, and those people, the new members, they're not competitors, they're colleagues. You know, the work is there. And I think the reason it's caught on so much is because there has never been such an easy time to acquire stuff. You know, we get it for free, we get it in goodie bags, it's really easy to buy. You can buy something before you've even thought about what you're buying. You know, things like PayPal and contactless make it really easy. There's loads of aspirational photographs about what my home should look like. Should is one of my least favourite words. And so then we immediately think we're failing because we've got too much stuff. I think that we work and run our lives in a different way to how we did maybe 20, 50 years ago. People are busier, we forget to set up systems. It's a 21st century problem.
It's not only a 21st century problem, it's a first world problem,
yes,
isn't it? Because not many people in the poorest parts of the world have goodie bags.
True, true.
So we are victims of the society we've created.
Very much, yes. Yeah.
And how do you help people deal with that?
I literally, me professionally, I literally rock up at their home and then we look at their life through their eyes. It's almost like I put their shoes on and we roll up our sleeves and we look at their stuff together. And we make decisions about what they want to keep and how they want to keep it.
It's like talking to a psychologist, isn't it?
Well, I am studying psychology. I'm not a psychologist.
Because you're identifying problems, aren't you, within that person's life and therefore within themselves.
Yeah, but often the problem is quite a logistical one. It's things like, how can I find my child's swimming kit when it's 10 to 8 and I need to leave the house at 8 and I haven't got the swimming kit because I can't remember where I put it.
You do it the night before.
Well, it's subjective. You know, for some people that might be the solution. For other people it might be to have a space. Yeah.
Okay, you two, in the United States, let me come to you first of all, Karen. It's virtue signaling. It's a first world problem.
Yes, I absolutely agree. And one thing that has worked for me is that having less has helped me find more meaning in my life. Because I focused on less material things and what really matters.
And was it difficult? Did you get help to do this? Let me ask you
No.
that first of all. So you did this yourself. Presumably you went,
did.
you read a little bit online about how to do it. And that's
I've-
perhaps where you got the idea.
I've read about it for a long time, just never thought I'd be someone that could do it.
So you
And I
didn't
was
have to
looking
bare
for-
your soul to anybody.
I did not, no.
Jonathan, would you be able to do that to somebody like Caroline, who's basically looking inside you and saying this is where you're going wrong?
Yeah, I think I would be willing to do that. I think, you know, that we can help each other with things like this. As to whether it's, you know, virtue signaling, I think, you know, at its best, minimalism is a means to an end, right? It's a way of kind of clearing away the clutter from our life and then finding out what remains and what's left, and hopefully that's what's important to us. I like to think of, you know, if you imagine your life as a desk that is just piled high with papers and there's nowhere to sit and do any work, minimalism ideally clears that off and gives you the space to work on what's important to you. I think sometimes it can become the end in and of itself, though. It can be easier to focus on only owning 300 things or 100 things or even fewer than that, and to kind of to let the means become the end.
Caroline, you can ask these people questions. You can say things to them. Of course, you mustn't mustn't wait for me.
Well, okay, so one
please
thing
do.
I do want to
Yeah.
say is I don't look inside people. What I do is I help people look inside themselves. So I don't give advice. And actually, I think, you know, ethically, that would be really off. It's about asking questions. So if, say I come to your house to work with you and your wardrobe, maybe, it would be understanding why you need to wear the clothes that you need to wear, asking you questions about your lifestyle, your body image, all those things. I would never tell you.
But in
what
a
you
sense,
need
you
to
are
do.
looking inside me, because by getting me to answer these particular questions, you are understanding more about me, and I'm giving more to you than perhaps I would do to any other person I
Yeah, and
just vaguely knew.
And the advantage of that is that because we don't share DNA, we don't have a relationship, and I'm not your friend, it's going to be easier for you to do that with someone like me than, say, a friend or a partner or a child, maybe.
But
Yeah.
it is, we have to be slightly more careful here. I think, Jonathan, I love what you said about a desk, sort of, you know, minimalism. It's something related to your desk. And let's all of us think, you know, where we work. There's been a great deal of theory that came from Japan, way before minimalism actually started. The sort of, the sort of, you know, the clean paradigm, something that is actually lean, the lean method, where we've actually seen businesses asking employees, remove all your belongings from your desk. No family photos, no little gimmicks. It's going to be only your folder, your computer, and that's about it. Performance has actually dropped because people want every single part of their environment to actually make it their own, to interpret it. So we in psychology, we've done a lot of experiments to actually see to what degree people actually need to have objects to psychologically connect with them. And the key idea there is that it's not about actually a clean surface, but it's an idea, the objects and us feeling in control of our space that allows us to feel better about ourselves.
It's very much like when some people are extremely young, they have a comfort blanket.
Yes.
Yeah, the
Isn't it?
attachment object.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or my dog walks around in circles
Yes.
to get herself comfortable before she goes
Yeah.
to sleep. You cannot reduce people to simply the work they do. They have to have something around them. And that's the important thing, is deciding what it is.
Precisely. So I think minimalism is great, but I think sometimes people misinterpret it as nihilism, that you don't have to have everything, that is actually not there. In reality, it's the art of understanding what objects provide meaning for you and creating an environment that is meaningful and gives you control. At the end of the day, human beings actually are incredibly anxious sort of creatures. So it's about taking control. When we are in control of our environment, that's fine. But being in control doesn't necessarily mean a bare, naked space that actually doesn't provide us inspiration and emotional support.
Karen and Jonathan, you're equally allowed to sort of ask questions of us here, but I've got a quick one for you first of all, Karen. I noticed that you said when you were talking to our producer that not only have you got rid of some of the physical clutter, but you've got rid of emotional clutter as well. You have reduced relationships.
Yes. I find that minimalism doesn't stop at material possessions. I think it starts there, but I think it turns into something so much bigger. And for me, I've been able to let go of things that I didn't before, and that didn't serve me, but I held on to.
Karen, would you mind elaborating as to what were the techniques that you've actually used to reduce your friendships? You know, sort of how did you go through? I suppose with a jumper it's a lot easier. I'm not wearing this jumper as much. I'm just going to give it to charity. How did you go about eliminating friends from your group?
I really was introspective, and I took the time to think, what really brings meaning and positivity into my life? If this doesn't, then maybe I need to take a step back. I haven't done it with just friends. I've done it with family. Because you always have some people in your life that maybe aren't the most positive people. And I've been able to really make a lot of positive changes. And it started with just decluttering my space, which sounds kind of funny, but it really did work for me.
What do you make of the cynics? Somebody here, Guardian writer, Chelsea Fagan, editor of what's called the Financial Diet. She writes, it's just another way of saying, another form of conspicuous consumption, a way of saying to the world, look at me, look at all the things I've refused to buy. There are cynics out there, aren't there?
I think because it's become such a fad that there are going to be people who don't agree with you. I'm in Facebook groups, and there's one group, and there's like 100,000 people, and one person wrote that she feels like she can't relate to anybody in the group because they're not true minimalists. So I believe that everyone's journey is different. It's going to look different for everybody. Some people
Jonathan,
don't.
there are people presumably who turn to you and sort of say, well, crikey, look at him. Why is he doing this? He's just drawing attention to himself. I mean, it is, as she says, you know, look at all the things I've refused to buy. The form of conspicuous consumption in itself.
Yeah, I think that that's probably a risk that a person runs in kind of taking up any philosophy or any way of living. Is there's either going to be some who say, well, you're just doing that for the attention, or again, that it's a form of virtue signaling. And, you know, and I think people are entitled to their opinion, and it may look that way sometimes. I agree with what Karen said just a moment ago. I think it's an overarching philosophy that can be applied to, it's often applied to things first, to physical possessions, but can be applied to relationships, or I almost think of myself as more of a minimalist with my time than with possessions. And minimalism is really just about being very intentional with how you spend precious resources. And time is the most precious of all resources. It's non-renewable. And I think, again, just being very careful and introspective, and as Karen said, and hitting pause every now and then and saying, how am I allocating my resources, and does that match with my values?
Caroline, do you ever wonder why, I mean, it's pretty obvious to you why some people want it done, but do you ever wonder why you want to make people do this, or want to help people do this? What is it in you that says this? I think you said there's real joy in feeling less encumbered.
Absolutely, and that's that's the overriding outcome that I see. So it's not like a sort of home that's ready for L decoration to walk in and take a photo. It's a client who's got shoulders that are lower, and a client who's now going to start doing different things. So clients do things like they start having people around for dinner. One woman decluttered her husband, and
What do you mean she got rid of him?
she literally when he came home, she thought she'd been thinking about this notion of does this spark joy? Does this give me meaning? We'd been looking at spoons.
I thought you meant perhaps she sort of threw out a pair of his old shoes. She threw him out.
No, well, you know, I don't know if she threw him out, but the relationship ended, and it was having gone through that process of thinking about, do I need this? Do I want it? Is it meaningful to me? She realised when he came home that actually this was a relationship that had run its course. It was a good outcome.
You see, I could then question whether it's a selfish motive, an entirely selfish motive. And going back to what Karen said about getting rid of friends and family that she didn't feel were useful to her, perhaps she was useful to them. Perhaps the husband felt his wife was really useful to him. But she was simply saying, no, this is all about me.
Well, I don't know. I'm a great believer in self-compassion, and I think it's the key to life. That if we look after ourselves, then we are better to look after other people. That's why we put the mask on ourselves when the aeroplane is going down, because then we can turn and help the young and the vulnerable. And I would argue that if we were in a relationship and I ended it because it wasn't working, then perhaps it wouldn't be working for you either. You know, there would be some way in which we weren't serving each other. There's something about noticing that goes on, which picks up on your comment there about the mindful living, the mindfulness, and noticing what's actually happening in my life.
This is all about, isn't it? I mean, and I mentioned this to you beforehand. I'm a golf fan. I make no apologies for saying this. Walter Hagen, big showman of the early part of the 20th century.
Yeah.
He said, take time to smell the roses.
Yeah.
And what he meant was, hang on, don't just do what you're doing. Stop, think, live in the moment.
Yeah.
And that's what this is about, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think it's all about taking the moment, understanding that you're present, understanding what you need, how you're feeling, how you connect to objects and individuals. However, I think I would be quite worried to start eliminating people from my life using a paradigm of minimalism. Just because I think by the very definition of minimalism, it's just simply excluding. I think I'd be more comfortable as a psychologist to recommend to someone to reevaluate, to review, to have a dialogue with someone before they can actually result into just, I'm excluding them just because it's actually, they're going to be causing issues to me or to my diet, to my lifestyle and so on. I think minimalism is by the very definition one-directional, less. I think life is not about less. Life is about facilitation of the things that we already have and being present.
I haven't asked you, actually. Are you personally a minimalist?
Not necessarily, no.
Are you hoping to be?
I'm hoping to be more in control. I'm in control of my possessions, my time, and where I would like to be. But I don't think I need less. I think I need to curate my lifestyle rather than limit it.
And isn't that what it's really all about, Karen?
Yes, I completely agree. It's about surrounding yourself with things that make you happy. I think that's the crux of it.
Yeah.
Is finding joy and meaning in your life.
So what's the next step as a beginner minimalist?
I want to continue on my journey. I want to continue decluttering my space because that seems to work for me. And I am saving money by not buying all the time. And I just want to see where this goes and how it can really help me in my life.
Jonathan, you're nodding at this. You're happy with where you are at the moment, or does there need to be more to it?
I really am happy with where I'm at. I think it's, you know, with number of possessions, I think it's kind of a sweet spot. If you have too many, there's some friction. You're tripping over things all the time. Your life is cluttered, and you know, literally and metaphorically. If you have so few things that you're kind of unprepared to deal with the uncertainties of daily life, that's not good either. I think having kind of being in a sweet spot is a good place to be, and that might be a few fewer things than most people currently own.
Very pleased to say that you haven't thrown out your Wynton Marsalis poster, which I think is one behind you. That is one great musician.
Yeah.
He is something else, isn't he?
Absolutely fantastic.
But Jonathan, I think you're absolutely right about the sweet spot, and I think everybody's sweet spot is different, isn't it? So I mean, you know, one word that's really common in my work is that word subjective. You know, what's right for me isn't going to be right for you. And actually, can I just declare that I'm not a minimalist either, and probably won't go.
So it's do what I say,
down the
not what I
path.
do.
No, because decluttering and organising isn't about becoming a minimalist. Minimalism is a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle choice. Decluttering and organising is about getting my home in order so that when I leave it in the morning, it's easy. And when I come home at night, I feel welcome. And then I can find the things that I need so that I can be a lovely, better person.
Are we all pretty much agreed that there are extremes in both directions? You can have too much, you can have too little.
Absolutely.
And what everybody here has agreed on today is that it's the important thing is to find the middle ground that makes you happy without having too much around you that distracts you.
Precisely. It is about finding that sweet spot or that happy medium. But because I think as human beings we're struggling to keep a happy medium, most people feel victims of becoming cult members, of becoming minimalists that actually can jeopardize. And in Jonathan's situation, sort of going above and beyond the call of saving himself to actually get rid of objects that actually meant something for him. So I think, again, before you throw something, perhaps put it in a box somewhere that is not in your own sight, and then reevaluate, did I actually need this or not? And then take it back if you actually need it. So I think allow yourself steps that will protect the actions that you might be making.
And it's not just physical things you have to put in a box, it's emotional things.
Precisely.
Hey, cracking time. Thank you very much indeed. It's been about minimalism. That's it. Goodbye.